Hello class, and welcome again to another lesson on JavaScript. In our previous lessons, we have looked at the different types of JavaScript operators. In this particular lesson, we want to focus on the concept of JavaScript data types. And what is a data type? The data type defines what kind of data is stored in variables. And for example, the data is stored in the variable could be numbers, the data could be letters or characters, and the data could also be decimal numbers, the data could be objects, and so on and so forth. In JavaScript, there are 8 types of data types, or there are 8 types of data. One is the numbers, and this number includes both the decimal numbers and the whole numbers. The other type is the strings, which stores a series of characters, and these characters are written within single quotes or double quotes. The next type of the data type is the booleans, and the booleans define only 2 values, and these values are either true or false. The next type of data in JavaScript is the undefined. The undefined data represents a variable with no value in it. The next type of the data is the object, and the last type of the data is the array, and the array simply means a list of multiple values. So we are going to use an operator called typeof, which is a JavaScript defined operator, and this operator helps you to know or to find the type of that variable and the type of data stored in that variable. So without further ado, let's get started and define the variables which store different types of data. And now I'm going to turn over to my Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to remove this particular code here, and I'm going to type a new code. So I'm going to declare a variable called x, and I'm going to store the value 10. And when you look now at x, you can say the data type of x now is a number, because x is storing a number value. You can as well store 10 point something, that becomes a decimal number. Still, this is defined as a number in JavaScript. So by storing this 10 in the variable x, if you now log and say console.log and you print type of x, and now you run this program. So let me clear the console, and I'm going to run this program again. And when you print type of x on the console here, it tells you the type of the variable x is a number, because x is storing a number. And below this x, I'm going to declare another variable, and I call it name, or maybe even y. And this time round, I'm going to store a string. And what's a string? A string is a series of letters which are surrounded by single quotation marks or a double quotation marks. So when you're writing a string, you can either use a single quotation marks like this, or you can use a double quotation like this. And within this double quotation, you can type whatever you want to store. Maybe I want to store the name of the person, Peter. And now when I save, I now want to come here and print the type of y. And because y is storing a string value, the type of y will print a string. So let me run the program again, and you can see below here it prints out type of string, type of y is a string. You can as well use the single quotation marks here, and it will still print a string. So again, when you run the program, it still prints type of y is a string. Now, instead of putting the name of the person, I can as well put the digit 20. But since this digit is surrounded within the quotation marks, despite it being a number, but as long as it is within the quotation marks, it makes it a string. So it is treated as a string. Now when I save the changes and run it again, you're going to see still the type of x is a string. So any value that is surrounded with a single quotation marks or a double quotation marks is treated as a string. Here I'm going to declare another variable and call it z, and in this variable I'm going to store a boolean value, and we said a boolean variable has only two possible values. The value can be either false or a true. So now I'm going to store the value false, and now when I print the value of z, I should be able to get, when I print the type or the data type of z, it should give you a boolean, because the value is stored in z is of a boolean value. Again, I'm going to declare another variable called sum, and I'm not going to assign any variable to it, any value to it. I've just declared a variable sum and no value is assigned to it. And now I want to print the type of sum, and the type of sum will give us undefined. So you can see the type of sum is undefined. Undefined means a variable which you have declared but you have not assigned a value to it, like this. That is categorized as a data type of undefined. So here you can, let me add a comment and say undefined data type. The other one here is storing a boolean data type, and the other one here is storing a string data type, and this first one is storing a number data type. The next type of data in JavaScript is the object, and an object is created to represent the real world entity for which the data is going to be stored. In the upcoming lesson, we shall look more into detail about the objects. So for now, I'm going to create a variable, call it student, and I'm going to store an object in this variable. And how do we create an object? We use the curly braces, and within the curly braces we provide all the properties of this object. We provide the property and the value. So a student has a name, and we can say name maybe Peter, and then a student maybe has admission number, and we say the admission number 1234. A student also maybe has age or gender, and we say maybe male. This representation of data is what we are calling it an object. So now when I print console.log type of student variable, you will see that the type of student variable is now an object, because the data we are storing in this variable called student is an object. The other type, so let me add a comment here and say this is object data type. Again, I'm going to declare another variable, call it my list, and in this my list I'm going to initialize an array, and this array, to initialize an array we use the square brackets, and then within the array we are going to provide a list of items separated by comma. So let us say we are storing a list of uh, programming languages. So the first, I can say JavaScript as the first item. Next, Python, comma, next programming language, Java, and you could go on and on and on. So here we have declared a list of programming languages, and now this list has 3 items. And now list, the array in JavaScript is treated as an object. So when I print type of my list, you're going to see on the console when I run the program again, it will still print an object. So that means for both the arrays and the object, the data type is still treated as an object. So with that said, I hope you get the concept of the different types of data that you can work with in JavaScript. So the data you are storing or the data you are performing calculations on could be a number, could be strings, could be Boolean values, it could be undefined values, it could be of type objects, or it could be of type arrays. So with that concept said, I want now to pause this lesson on JavaScript data types, and in our next concept, in our next class, we shall be able to look at the concept of JavaScript functions. Otherwise, thank you for joining this class and see you in our next class.